All right, everyone. Thank you for attending. We are about to get started. We are going to be talking about enterprise teams evolving SEO with Jeff Ferguson of Amplitude Digital, coming all the way from Los Angeles. Jeff, thank you so much. And here we go.
Thanks a bunch. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Well, thank you all for coming over. I know this is one of the last ones today. I know I'm competing with cupcakes, so thanks for coming in. And it's tough to get people in the room when you're up against that. So yeah, we're going to talk this today. This is new. This is kind of newish content. I did test run this against my students. I'll tell you a little bit more about that when we kind of get to about who I am. But yeah, let's talk about who I am on this one. So it's funny. I was really active on the speaking circuit for years, like years and years, for about a decade, but it took some time off, and I'm kind of getting back out into it now. So I will kind of tell you who I am in greater sense. But I've been in the digital marketing business for about 25 years now, and started off originally as a webmaster back in 1995, and did everything from coding to like resetting the server in the middle of the night, but I was also a marketing person and everything like that, and was I was doing SEO before it really was called SEO. So it was one of the things where I'm really one of the true old men of the business when it comes to this type of stuff, and really kind of like have that kind of history when it comes to this type of work. When it comes around to it, and you may have heard me mention it before. Started off with a mid-sized hardware software company that nobody knows anymore called Alpha Micro, but quickly started moving up during the internet boom to where I was like the first of my kind as far as companies like the Hilton Hotels Corporation and Kimberly-Clark, and I was like I was the head of marketing for Napster before it got bought by Best Buy, and ran basically all those types of companies for like about 15 years on the corporate side of things, over and over again. And whether or not it was SEO was part of my job or just kind of mixed in there, whether or not, or exclusively the only thing part of my job, it was always there. But I also did things like paid search and paid social or social media as part of the job, or did a little bit of everything, or ran the entire department or things like that. But I'm kind of like a polymath when it comes to this type of things. It's really a little bit of everything. And in addition, after about that first 15 years, I decided to start my own advertising agency, but I actually started off as a consulting company that was called Fang Digital Marketing specifically, and did that for about 10 years. Come on in. It's cool. Did that for about 10 years, and was chugging along, having a great time doing that kind of stuff, and decided I wanted to get a little bit bigger. And I had another company called Amplitude Digital reach out that actually wanted to merge. It was talking about merger type of stuff, and this was in near the end of the year in 2019, and we started actually chatting and then all that good kind of stuff, and we signed all the paperwork in right at the end of March 2020. And anybody else remember what happened in March 2020? Yeah, so that all kind of came together, and we actually pulled together, and we decided to retire the Fang name and went with Amplitude Digital. And we stuck it out. We actually did really great together. We actually helped a lot of companies that we had as clients already. A lot of them get bigger. We lost a few clients during that time frame, but we did really well. Did fantastic. Picked up some new clients, and it was a big ride. But it wasn't exactly what my other two business partners thought it was going to be, and it wasn't exactly the dream they envisioned for this kind of stuff. So they made it all the way out through this one. And they're both a little bit older than I was. So both of them decided to get out of the advertising business. They said, well, I'm just going to done with this stuff. So believe it or not, I actually just got done buying them out. So I'm actually back to being a solo owner of a business. And I kept the Amplitude Digital name. So it's just me again with my team and my clients and everything like that. So we usually keep about 12 clients, and we'll talk about them in a little bit in a bit. But in addition to that, I also am an adjunct professor at UCLA. I teach advanced digital marketing. I also invented the search engine optimization class at UCLA. I'm the only one that teaches it, and the only one there. Actually, as far as I know, I think the only one in Southern California that actually has that class over there right now. So if you're in Southern California, you want to take another class, I teach that there. And then just for fun, just because apparently I don't like to sleep very much. I own a record store in Burbank, California. My partner and I actually do that. So if you want to follow it, it's called Run Out Groove Records in lovely Burbank, California. If you're ever in Burbank and are into records, come out and see us. We started off just being open on weekends, but my partner, Ellen, actually just retired from restaurant work. And so we're going to actually have hours during the week now. And as we kind of move into the holidays, we're looking forward to being open more. So it's pretty cool. It's we've got real customers and everything. It's pretty neat. So we're having a really good time as a passion projects go. It's something that's gotten bigger and more popular way faster than we thought it was. So we're about 4 months old, and it's like making more money than we thought it was going to be. So it's kind of neat, and knowing everything about local SEO really helped on that kind of side. So it's not bad on that front. So as an agency standpoint, I was talking a little bit before, the Amplitude itself was funded back in 2004. And on any given moment, we've got about 30 team members, and we're a Google Premier partner, which means that we kind of, straddle up there in that top 5%. And back before the pandemic, we actually had offices back in LA and Burbank. Now we just got the Burbank one. And one of our corporate missions is actually to aid animal rescues. So we actually work with usually placing dogs and donate money to those charities and things like that. So we're big on that one. And client-wise, we work some really fun brands. It's one of the things that when I was with Fang, I'm always work with brands that I really that I'm into, I guess is a good way to do this stuff. Yeah, exactly. But started off Fabletics. Actually, Just Fab was one of our clients. We worked with all the Fabs really early on. They were one of the first ones, and we've helped Billabong and Bally and Martha Stewart and Willow Snacks and Xperia and Toyota, Bellabach Meals, and Sony Pictures Television was really fun. And we were doing so much work for them. I actually had an office on the lot over in Culver City for a stretch there. PetSmart Charities. Manchester United was a client for a stretch. Yeah, that was really fun. Another one that's not on here, and I'll talk about it a little bit more, was the Smithsonian. We actually did the SEO work for the entire Smithsonian network. We've worked on some stuff over the years, and we're really proud of that. So that's kind of a piece of it. So to kind of get into what I'm actually here to kind of talk about, is this concept of enterprise and this concept of, you saw the name out front and this idea of like teams and how they're going to evolve and how things like that. And that's really the subject of it. And I've got this little pre-mumble that I want to talk about today and first of it like that. But I know there's always this like it's fun for speakers to really kind of drop a lot of controversy on you. Like it's the fun way to really just kind of like screw with your head, right? It's like, oh, hey, just run out here and kick the table over and say SEO is dead or something stupid like that. And so I'm not going to do that, right? So like SEO is not dead, and it's not going to die, right? I've always kind of said as long as there's search engines around, and who knows how long that's going to last, right? They may take on another forum where it's just like tapped right into your head for in the next 20 years, who knows, right? But it's one of the things where there'll be some form of SEO kicking around for a while, and the good news is that means that the SEO, like that is like the search engine optimizer himself, it's like it's not dead, and he's not going to go away either. And so that's good news, right? As far as the people is that have that role as a job in some form, whatever. However, the thing I think we have to think about, and this is one of the things I really want to talk about today, is that who the SEO is, especially on this enterprise level, is going to evolve, right? And that's the thing I really, really want to talk to you about today, because it's, you almost want to, I want to throw it to you almost like as a warning, right? Just this really early warning shot, because it's something that could affect you, soon. Could be the 5 years, could be 10 years, whatever it is. But it's something that I really want to make sure you understand is I don't want you to be left out of this equation, right? Because, you know, it's your job. It's how you make money. It's how you put food on the table, all right? And it could be a real big deal, all right? So let me explain before we get too harried about this kind of stuff, right? So, does anybody watch Mad Men? A couple of hands, right? So, Mad Men, for those of you who don't watch it, was this great show. It was on, goodness, what was it, 10 years ago, I guess, at this point. So it's a little dated. You can watch it. It's on AMC. You can stream it all over the place now. And there was a character on it. His name was Harry Crane. And he was a great character. This is actually from later in the series when he was like entered in the 60s, I think what it is. But like he, when they first introduced him, he was in charge of what was back then. The whole place takes place in like the golden age of advertising. And he was in charge of what was back then the new department of television advertising, right? So you got to imagine this is like, that's how far back this is. It's like when television advertising was a brand new concept. And it was so new that nobody knew how to do it, right? And there wasn't special, you know, so they said, hey, we need a specialist. We need this one person that actually knows how to do this. So nobody knows how to create creative for it. Nobody knows how to write copy for it. Nobody knows how to traffic it. Nobody knows how to deal with this thing. It's just weird. And everybody else we've got around here knows how to deal with print and magazines or billboards or radio. All those people, that's everybody we've got in this agency knows how to deal with. But radio, television, it's weird and it's scary. And we need somebody to deal with this stuff. And this guy actually stepped up and said, hey, look, I want to be in charge of this. Put me in charge, right? So he stepped to do this kind of stuff, right? And so I want to point out this guy, right? Because this guy doesn't exist anymore in an advertising agency. How many people actually work in advertising agencies? Anybody know? A couple people, right? If you work in a big advertising, or especially a really big advertising, like this guy really doesn't exist anymore, like a specialist that just handles television, right? If you are, right, it's funny, like in modern times, like this guy would be the equivalent of like the digital media expert, I guess in this time, right? It's something where you just don't see it much anymore. Like everybody that actually comes into like an advertising agency these days is expected to know how to buy television, but also print, but also radio, but also, you know, everything along the ways. It's just the way media planning actually works. And matter of fact, everybody that's coming out of college these days should know how to, you know, do digital and all the pieces of the puzzle. That's just what media buying looks like. The idea that you would actually, you know, not know how to do this kind of stuff is just ridiculous, right? And so I wanted to really kind of like plant that in your idea, right? So it's only a matter of time before the concept of a digital media expert becomes redundant, right? It's only so long before anybody in this room or even myself or whatever it is, before they stop saying, look, hey, we're going to stop needing digital marketers, right? We just need marketers, right? And you just need to be a marketer that just knows how to run digital, right? That just should be part of your job. And why don't you already? Like if you're running around being a marketer that doesn't know digital, like how are you still here already? Yeah, like you should have retired by now because that's just the way this kind of stuff would work, right? So how do I know this? Remember the part when I tell you I teach at UCLA, right? So I teach tomorrow's youth. I teach all these people that are coming up behind you. And they just like, and I'm making sure that all these people do know this kind of stuff. I'm making sure that they're all there. And I'm making sure that, you know, everybody that's in my advanced digital marketing class, you know, I'm going to have to refresh them on things like the consumer journey and all this kind of stuff too. But for the most part, I'm making sure that they really understand all these different pieces of the puzzle when it comes to digital marketing and SEO and all that kind of stuff, how it really weaves into how these things function, including SEO, including that really big piece of it. But I'm also really dropping a big bomb on them from the idea that saying, hey, look, if you're going to end up in a really big corporate environment, get ready for the idea that all the pieces of the SEO puzzle are really going to get spread back out, right? Right? And it's going to be a real trip, right? Because the need for the skills when it comes to the SEO is going to remain. like all the different pieces of the puzzle when it comes to SEO, those content writers, the website developers, the link builders, all those kind of pieces that are all out there. That stuff's still going to be needed, because why wouldn't it be, right? But who's going to do it? It's only a matter of time before these giant corporations start looking around and going like, oh, wait a minute. We've got these people already, right? These people are here already. We just need to get them to upgrade their skill sets a little bit and get them to do it on their own, right? And we can kick these guys out that are claiming that are like, hey, I am the SEO expert in the room, and stop paying them as individual consultants, as these kind of like voodoo experts that come in and claim the day. And instead just kind of say, hey, you know what? This is actually just part of your job. This is just what the future looks like. And yes, by the way, SEOs hate it when I say this, right? They hate this concept of the future, right? So how's it going to happen? It's just kind of like what search engine looks like, right? And I can see it already, right? So the way that I always kind of teach SEO and the way I work with it with my own clients and everything is that I don't have a lot of use for on-page SEO and off-page SEO or technical SEO or all that kind of stuff to it. I usually kind of break it into like 3 big sets. Usually it's like assets, architecture, and authority, just because of the alliteration mostly. All right, but you can call it like content, website architecture, inbound links. You know, I've seen people kind of group this into different piles, right? But it's really just another way to kind of look at the same things, right? A lot of times assets and architecture are the same as it like on page, if you think about it. Authority is another way to look at off page. You know, there's different ways to do it, but it's the same stuff, right? And modern SEOs, like if you really think about it, and like I work with these people that are on site in these really big organizations, like I said, at Manchester United, at the Smithsonian, at Sony Pictures, whatever it is. Most of them these days, they feel more like project managers, right, than anything else. They're really just kind of running around. That's what the slide is really for. They're kind of running around just begging for resources, right? You know, like they're really not doing the same work that I remember I was doing like back in the 90s and the early aughts, where like we were, you know, opening the hood and really hacking like we used to do in the days. Like you're really just going to go, please fix this. Would you please just fix this and get it done, whatever it is, to the point to where you can't even like, I mean, you're nodding your head a lot, but you've almost had to stop calling it SEO and start calling it other stuff and say like, it's really, I just need to make the website faster. Can you just do that? I just like it. It's for everybody. It's not for SEO. It's for everybody. If you just fix it, everybody will be happy, right? Yeah. So it's like, that's kind of where it is. And that's why this change is happening. Matter of fact, these are some of the tricks that I actually sneak into my students. Is kind of like, I guess, like, stop calling it SEO stuff and you get it done faster. Like if you get in the middle, when you're in the stand-up meeting and say like, hey, it's for this, it's really for marketing, it's really for this kind of stuff. And, you know, all those blocks will go away, you know, they'll just get done, right? And the way this stuff will all happen, right, is that you'll see these jobs evolve, right? The copywriter's role will evolve, right? This, by the way, the copywriter, this is my favorite one to evolve, because actually I was trained as a copywriter originally, right? That's my first job. I actually wanted to be a copywriter, right? I was trained as a computer scientist. Originally, I started off that way, and I changed my major over to advertising. I was kind of joking because that's where all the girls were, but in reality, because I couldn't hack the math originally, and then they changed all the math requirements, and then they double majored me out. So in 1995, I graduated with a double major in computer science and advertising. And it looked like I was grown in a lab to be an internet marketer, you know, like that. But I came out wanted to be a copywriter. That's what I wanted. You know, it's like, hey, I'll just do this. It was fantastic. But so I was trained to write. I'm a fantastic writer, I think so. And you probably see my work up on the Search Engine Journal and some other stuff. And so, you know, everything I was trained about writing for an audience, right, is like just learn about that audience as much as you can. And if you think about it, if you're writing for the web, right, you're talking about an audience that uses search engine, right? But this is backwards of the way most people write for SEO, right? Most of the time you're writing for SEO instead of actually writing for the audience that uses search engines, right? It's a little like flip when you think about it, but it shouldn't be, right? It's a really easy way to get your mind around this kind of stuff. And as a writer, if we actually gave all these tools to writers and say, look at all these awesome tools you got these days. You got these words, all these tools that actually can help you find the words that people are actually using when they're searching for things, or great ways to find new topics for things, whatever it is. It's like a writer's wonderland, right? Like that. But instead, you've got all these SEOs like hoarding them all for themselves, right? So what we actually end up with is a bunch of SEOs that are kind of like so-so writers, like trying to, basically, crib together this kind of crappy copy that gets the job done for SEO. When in reality, what we should actually have is these fantastic writers that are writing optimized copy, right? That's the world we should be actually pushing forward. Like that's the dream, right? Like that's what we should, and that's where I think we'll get to if we kind of push it there. And that's what I think actually enterprise will get to if they figure this out, right? On the developer's role, this one I'm surprised we haven't got to yet, right? Is that we don't just have more and more developers that are just going like, I really should just know how to do this shit already, right? Like, why don't I just make this website fast from the get-go? And like, why isn't it mobile friendly already? And why, don't I have all these things in place? Why aren't these tags here already? Whatever it is. By the way, when it comes to the copywriter's role, there's plenty, like, I don't want this person to know all the technical requirements. Like, it's not everything they need. Like, I don't need these things to start blending together. Every time I've made this argument before, it's like somebody once got in an argument with me online and goes like, oh, want Shakespeare to know how to run the house lights. And I go, no. Like, I don't need all of that, right? I just need everybody to know how to do their job in the modern times, right? That's really what I'm going for here, right? But at the developer's role, like it's just like it's your time, right? There's stuff, and you're basically running a web applications in a time when search engines exist, right? Know how this stuff comes together, right? That's what I'm looking for, right? And then the publicist, this is the one that's interesting, right? You're really the publicist, basically the PR department, otherwise known as the PR department, the best link builders ever. My God. These people were born for this, and they do it so well. I've never seen anything like it. These people working, and it's not that crap that's out there. They're not running around with comment spam. They're not begging for links and all those blogs and stuff like that. They're getting that top shelf stuff from the the Wall Street Journal and all these other high-end publications that you can't even dream of getting by begging with emails. Right? They know how to make this stuff work. What you just need to train them to do is get that link to the right page. And it's gold mine stuff, right? When I trained that, we did this with the Smithsonian and with Sony, whatever it is, and all it took was taking them to lunch a few times. Just like this is all it's going to do. So that was the big deal, right? So everyone we don't need to know how to do every aspect of SEO. They just need to know how to basically doing their job, right? And like I said, it's one of the things, there's plenty of people that will never happen, right? But let's talk about change, specifically ulcers, right? The things all the SEOs get once in their life, right? For a long time, people swore up and down that ulcers were caused by stress. I'm not kidding, that's what it was. For the longest time, people thought ulcers were caused by stress. People lived and died by it all the way up until just recently, within the last couple of years, until, where'd these guys go? Sorry, I think I lost the slide. Until these guys, right? And it was only a couple of years ago. These guys just recently figured out it's actually just a bacterial infection, right? They won the Nobel Prize for this, right? And now they can actually just give you a course of antibiotics and they can cure an ulcer with it. Right, it's mind-blowing, right? So if these guys can actually just figure out that by actually just changing that, imagine the kind of change that we can do. We're not even asking for that. We're just asking for writers to learn how to use keyword tools. So how do we do these kind of things? We're asking you to be an agent of change, right, inside of the organization before the change happens anyway, right? And you're the one being shown the door. Be the one that causes this kind of evolution. And how does this actually happen? It's through a process called change management. All right. So change management is interesting. I didn't come up with it. I didn't invent it, right? It's something that it's basically change managers. It's a process of tools and techniques to manage the people side of change, right? Achieve the required business outcome, right? It's been around for years, maybe even decades at this kind of point, right? You can read volumes on this kind of stuff. I'm just actually going to go through some big points of it. You know, change is hard for any size business. We're talking really, really hard. But imagine big enterprise size businesses. I mean, they're really the big, you know, the IBMs, the Toyotas, these gargantuan Fortune 500 type businesses. It is a major, major process. Imagine when they introduced like robotics to car companies and things like that. What have major changes with it, and how often this type of stuff fails, right? Costs are high when it goes wrong. When big changes come in with great fanfare and then fizzle out, cynicism things, right? Companies have gone down the drain for this kind of stuff, right? I mean, if you think about it, think of big companies that just aren't around anymore. Xerox, Kodak, stuff like that. These are all failed change experiments that have happened like within probably in your lifetimes that you've seen this kind of stuff, right? You know, sometimes if it change fatigue, pressures from too many changes at once, like it happens right in front of you, they'll flounder. Sometimes the C-suite comes in with no real input from lower levels, will just fall apart on you. It happens all the time, right? And so why do I bring this up? What's this actually have to do with SEO in the first place? Search engine optimization is a major shift in how operations and how organizations function, right? It just is. And I mean, you all seen it. You've seen this kind of stuff too. And trying to introduce this in an organization is a big deal. And for the longest time, SEO was sold as its own discipline, right? You know, most people think it's not my job, right? It's just the way it was, right? And for me, the way that I've always told my students and the way I tell companies is that it's a combination of marketing, website development, and public relation tactics. There are already people with these roles in these organizations, right? Trying to convince entrenched personnel that their roles are expanding can be really difficult. And for an SEO to be successful, multiple roles need to update their skill sets. Remember that word, by the way, skill sets. It's a fantastic word, right? So this little pathwork for change management, right? It actually came from PricewaterhouseCoopers, right? So if you really wanted to get into like the study of change management, like I said, there's books, there's a lot you can read on it. There's a PricewaterhouseCoopers. Other companies that have really got into it are McKinsey. There's a couple other people. A lot of the big buildings out there, right? the big consultants that come in and they come in, they drop a bunch of change on you and they leave with a big paychecks. So I like the PricewaterhouseCoopers ones. We're going to kind of like run through that today. I've kind of adapted it for the SEO culture. We'll run that today, right? So in my opinion, lead with the culture. I like this one first, right? Culture is everything. Lou Gerstner, one of the guys that ran IBM for years, said that. Instead of trying to change the culture, draw emotional energy from it. I know that sounds really hippy dippy, right? But it's really, it's really more about understanding like what's going on in the place before you start tearing it down, right? And it's one of the things where when I go into places like the Smithsonian or Sony or anything like that, I really try and make sure I understand what's going on there before I start doing anything inside of that place first, right? I get to know the people. I take people out to lunch. I go into different sections that I'm working with and really try and understand it first before I start doing anything. And it's usually like all happening concurrently while I'm doing the audit, right? It's like at the same time. It's one thing after the other. Tap into the way people already think, behave, work, and feel. Look for elements of the culture that are aligned to core SEO principles and bring them into the foreground, right? It's a lot of moving parts to make this work. You got to figure out who's actually doing all these different pieces of the puzzle so you can have them all in other meetings as you're doing this education sessions to make sure it works, right? And then it becomes a matter of kind of really like having the right kind of rah-rah sessions to bring it forward, right? For instance, like, hey, your writing is great. Let's just make sure it all aligns with how people are actually searching for us. Right? The PR team is amazing. Let's make sure we get the most out of those inbound links. Right? It's usually getting them right to the right pages, right? Start at the top. All right, you have to, right? Right. And I mean, you may have got invited in by some lower people, and that's fantastic. That's a good place to start. But like, engage employees at every level early, but all successful change management initiatives start at the top, right? If you don't get that in early buy-in, agreement methods from every department, it's just not going to work, right? Got to get that C-suite in there. Information technology has got to get that buy-in from there. Oh, my goodness. They don't buy in this thing, you're stuck, you're dead in the water. Marketing and public relations has to get that buy-in. You got to develop a case that everyone could support together, and I mean together, right? Sometimes you have to require like an offsite meeting. Sometimes sometimes you just get them to a place like this, take them to like a hotel, get a buffet. I don't know, right? Like, feed them, maybe take them to a Dave and Buster's. Do what you need to, right? But you got to get them out of the room so they can actually talk and make them understand that this is going to be like a change that they have to work with, that they agree on, that they take it through. Because otherwise, it's just not going to work, all right? And then after that, you want to involve every layer, right? Strategic planners often fail to involve mid-level and frontline people who could make or break the change. I'm not kidding. Like if you leave these people out, like these are the ones that will really sabotage you, right? I've seen it over and over again, right? It's much smoother if these people are tapped early for input issues that will affect their jobs, because it is their jobs, right? Frontline people can identify where glitches may occur, right? Because they're doing it every day, right? They're the ones that can tell you, like, he goes, hey, this isn't going to work. And he goes, great, tell me how it works. Tell me how this is actually going to change. Tell me how we're going to do this, right? We'll make it right the first time. And he goes, and it's really like, don't resist involving people because you think it'll be smoother with fewer people. I know, I get it, right? But you need to. You're going to have to just pull that Band-Aid off and get them involved, right? Get input from your content creators, for instance, like your website builders and your PR team on how they're currently doing their jobs, right? And then roll them into it, right? And it's like, you'll see in a minute, like it's better for them in the long run. It's going to make them better, on several levels. All right. You want to make the rational and the emotional case together for this kind of stuff. Leaders often make the case for major change solely on the strategic level, right? Hey, we'll gain more traffic from search. Yeah, that's nice, right? We'll rank better for important keywords. Yeah, whatever. Human beings respond to calls for action that engage their hearts as well as their mind. I know that, again, a little hippy-dippy, right? But it's one of the things where you want to work with these teams on how these changes in their roles will help these grow as individuals to be the best versions of themselves, right? Don't write for search engines, but write for humans that use search engines. That's what I was talking about before, right? One of the ones I do when I do these education sessions inside of these companies is say, congratulations, you can now add SEO expert to your resume, right? It's like, it works like a charm, right? Act your way into new thinking. Change doesn't happen just because of bold statements of intent or because you put new lines on our organization chart, right? People's daily behaviors need to reflect the imperative of change. Start by defining a few critical behaviors that will be essential success, right? Hey, content team, right? Make sure you use keyword research during the research stage of your work to help guide your writing, right? PR team, make sure your press coverage includes links to specific pages on the website, not just the homepage, right? It's just little tweaks to their job on how they do this kind of stuff. PR teams, by the way, like we gave them like access to some of the tools that are usually used again for like link building type stuff. They send like, then they lost their minds. Like it was because they're going like, wait, you can find like other people that are writing stuff. Like it goes, yeah, it's fantastic. They didn't know they were doing it all the hard way for this time. And it's amazing stuff. Engage. Get out there and keep talking to them. Keep doing. Leaders often make the mistake that if they make a big speech, people will understand what to do, and then they split, right? Change requires constant communication, not just in the roll-up, but after the major elements. And by the way, not just by guys like me that come in and teach this kind of stuff. I mean, everybody in the organization, all the bosses, the C-level, just all the way down. More types of communication they employ, the more effective they are, right? With SEO, much of this can take the form of reporting success, right? They love the success meetings, right? Show how that content appears on the first page results, right? Like writers love this kind of stuff. Those content writers, get in front of them, right? Celebrate improvements in this page speed, Like, look how much faster we are, right? When we did this for Sony, and we basically showed how like the conversion rate got so much better, and like that actually made you know, basically sales go up on the site, you know, across the board, not just for SEO, but it made like sales go up on all these other platforms. It was a mind blower, right? Same thing goes with JustFab, made all these different platforms, right? Demonstrate how the website's authority has increased thanks to the PR team's inbound links, right? All of these types of things is because look, we've done all done this together. Like all these things work, but usually, you know, SEO stuff is usually done in a vacuum, right? It's usually made this kind of changes. Nobody knows their help, because nobody ever hears back on this type of stuff. But you got to let them know it all worked together. Again, content's the one you got to share back with it. You know, writers are gentle people. Got to share back with them. Let them know that their work is being seen by people. Lead outside the lines. Change is best chance of flowing through the organization when everybody with both authority and influence is involved. Involve more than just the people with formal positions of power. Pay attention to that one. More than just people with formal positions of power, but also people whose power is related to their expertise. Everybody knows who these people are in the organization. These may be the low people. This is like the people working at the front desk. These are the people, you know, that you know, they're without the manager titles, but you know, they're running the department, right? They, you know, well-placed piece of gossip in the organization, and they can like take it all the way through the organization, right? It can help, right? Let everyone show off with this type of stuff. Content creators can illustrate how keyword research changed the way they approach an article, right? The website team can show off how an SEO issue was really a technical issue that affected more than search. That one happens all the time. PR team can show how they used SEO tools to find new influencers and reporters. That's the other one I was talking about. Leverage formal solutions. Persuading people to change won't work unless formal elements are redesigned to support them. Structure. SEO lead within each department, right? Again, it's one of the things where you can't just basically, again, if you're going to do away with this idea of like having just one grandiose SEO person, you're going to have somebody that basically takes on this SEO, you know, role within the organization. Somebody still has to pay attention to stuff, keeps up with new changes, updates, things like that. And again, it's going to spread out a little bit, but it's fine. It's really, you're just kind of keeping your own lane, right? Reward systems, compensations, bonuses, things like that. Ways of operating, SEO checklists that are now part of this larger checklist, right? Really big enterprise organizations, you've seen these checklists. You've seen them before. Standard operating procedures. It's the way it works. You just have to roll them into the way it works. Training. New hires are trained on the SEO best practices as part of the onboarding, right? This training, I cannot stress this enough. Like the training just has to be part of the way everybody works going forward. If you don't train the new people when they come in, it just fades away when the turnover happens, right? Development, SEO knowledge is shared throughout the organization. You just got to keep doing it. If one person hears about an update on Google or some other shift or whatever it is, make sure that it goes through the entire organization. Leverage informal solutions. Even when formal elements are in place, the established culture can undermine change. Some of the most powerful solutions are cultural and informal, right? Assess and adapt. Many organizations involved in transformation fail to meet their success. Leaders can be so eager to claim success that they don't take time to find out what's working and what isn't. Happens all the time. Take the form of formal reporting on how SEO efforts have increased revenue and cut costs. However, don't just stop there. Continually work with team members to ensure that they understand their contribution to the success. All right. What are we doing time? Oh, perfect. All right. So when will this all happen? When will this big change happen? I put Al Gore up here because he had all these speeches about when will climate change happen. And he was a little bit off, but he's not too bad off, right? Yeah, doing it. He voted for all the procedures for the other day. Come on. Don't give him so much grief. So I don't know. Like there he goes. I don't know when it's all going to happen. It could be the next 5 years. It could be the next 10 years, whatever it is. I will say it's also happening right now. Right? You know, it's one of the things where it's happening right now. As I mentioned, I've got clients like the Smithsonian and Manchester United, and I've already taught them how to do it. They're already doing it right now. Sony's already doing it. Smithsonian's doing it. All the people that I teach at UCLA that are going through my classes already know how to do it, and they're spreading out to the world like wildfire, whatever it is. So like I said, you can either get on board with this or you could fight it. So yeah, You know, it's funny. I wrote this line one day: if you can really want to shake up an SEO, tell them that most of the shit that they think is SEO is really somebody else's job. And John Mueller liked it. So, so I'm probably onto something, right? And that's it. My name is Jeff Ferguson. You want to find me? You can get to Amplitude Digital that way. I'm also Count Zero with an X on Twitter if you want to get me that way. And yeah, we got plenty of time for questions. Yeah.
Before you ask questions, please use the mic. And I actually have one from online. Get that asked first. How do you position SEO when there are budget constraints?
So believe it or not, the way that I talk about it here, with the idea that you know, that it is just part of the organization, whatever it is that it's already part of the budget, right? If you think about it, so if you think about SEO in the sense that it is, you know, it's a collection of marketing, website development, and public relations tactics that already exist, right? You've probably already got the budget for it, right? It's usually just a matter of saying like, hey, you know, don't we have this covered already in some form, whatever it is. And if it's a matter of something like, hey, if this isn't covered in one way, then what's taking up that budget, right? So like that's kind of the way to do it. I don't know the specific example this guy's probably caught up on, like that's, so it's always hard to tell, but it's usually one of those things where there's usually a way, right? Because the budget is usually wrapped up in something else in those ways. But if you, and that we were making a joke about it earlier about the idea is like, sometimes if you approach something with the idea of like, hey, look, we want to start doing some SEO, and they'll go like, hey, we don't have a budget for SEO. And I go, great. Do you have a budget for public relations? They go, oh yeah, all day. It was great. How about, do we have a budget for like updating the website? Yeah, great. How about for writing new content? Great. Okay, good. We'll just do that then. Right? It's the same thing, right? It goes, just sometimes you just have to sell these things different, right? And that gets the job done. So, you know, it's, you know, do it whatever way you need to get this thing done. Sometimes just don't sell it as SEO. It's just wrapped in a different wrapper. So, yeah.
This is not really a question, just a comment, but yeah. I work for an agency, and I find when we have our hands in so many, help the client with so many other things, it makes it hard for them to get rid of us. Yeah. So when we help with this and we help with that, it's not just SEO. We get a little bit paid search. We help them, train them for PR. When it's time for them to cancel, they're like, oh, we didn't realize you helped with that.
Yeah.
Help with that or help with that. So it makes you a lot stickier.
Yeah. It's hard to unravel this, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That can happen too. Yeah. We're involved with a lot of stuff. I mean, I'll give you some insight into the way our agency works these days, especially when it comes to SEO, is like, we're almost designed to be thrown out, like when it comes to the SEO side of things, but it's not such a bad thing, right? Like we come in with this very consulting approach for these enterprise clients. So we come in and really, we do these large scale audits. We do show them everything that's up, you know, as far as like, this is broken and this needs work. And we're going to help you with this content strategy. And we're going to help you with the link building strategy. And we're going to, help you with an education program to actually train everybody for it. And we're going to help you with change management. And we're going to help you through this whole process. So we really walk you through this entire process. And then usually we've got a retainer that lasts anywhere for like 6 months to a year to make sure that it gets implemented and it kind of hangs out. And it's just the way that it works, right? But we also know that relationship, like in that form, is not going to last forever. However, what we have noticed is that the referral for that is really fantastic, because people generally say, hey, look, this is the way we like to do things, especially for these big companies. But we've also noticed that the paid side of the business, which we also do as an agency, Amplitude like that, that shows up pretty quick, right? So it's one of the things where they're like, hey, while you're in here, would you mind taking a look at our paid search ads? Or would you mind taking a look at the rest of those? You do that too, right? And that shows up, and suddenly that business appears, and we end up picking all those things up. So you're not far from the mark on that side. And suddenly that relationship's there because they trust us, but suddenly we're not the types of SEOs that look predatory, and are the ones that are basically seeing, we're not the black box type of SEOs where it's like, hey, don't worry about it. We're just going to do a bunch of stuff and not tell you what's actually going on. Instead, we're so transparent that, we made ourselves redundant. Right? So yeah, it all gets there. Right. But yeah.
Any other questions?
I was just saying, am I that good? I'm sorry.
Thank you. Hi, you're talking a lot about content. Are there any content tools or strategies that you can share?
It's funny, on the content tools, shoot, I mean, like a lot of the good keyword tools that are out there, just solid, good old fashioned keyword tools have been around for a while. I still love using those. So SEM Rush's keyword tool is my favorite these days with it's actually pulling in a lot of stuff with its questions and it's the keyword magic and the way it's all laid out. It seems to work with me. Then again, I still really like Answer the Public. Even after it got bought, I don't think I was so afraid when that tool got bought they were going to screw it up, but it seems to be okay. Even though they screwed up its person up front, I think I like the old guy better. But it's still a good way to do stuff, and you still have to kind of move that data into something else to really get it to do what you want to. But it's a good way to do it, and but yeah, a lot of the other ones out there that I try everything as it comes out, as far as like, hey, is this worth anything as far as tools go? And I really, I'm really not seeing anything that's really blowing my mind. There's so many of them that are trying to be these great like content marketing tools. And usually the stuff that they're pushing on you as far as information goes is usually incorrect, or it's not actually, SEO accurate, I guess is the way to do it. They're usually pushing stuff to where they're saying things like, oh, it's still pushing things like word count, or it's still pushing things like keyword density, which isn't a thing, right? Or stuff like that where you're going to go like, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing that? All stuff that has been rejected outright from years ago and stuff like that. And you go like, well, that should go away, right? And so, but otherwise, like the classic stuff of just kind of saying like, hey, this is good data for inspiration is mostly what I use in that as far as strategy goes. But yeah, I mean, I've got when I teach at UCLA, I've got a whole, like one night is just about content development and stuff like that. And it's, I could go on and on. I really still love that part of it. But yeah.
Any others?
Hi, so I'm also with an agency, and I think my biggest challenge working with enterprise brands in the past is that there's a lot of people, and things just get really slowed down when you're trying to push things through. Mm-hmm. So how do you go about getting things through the pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, it was that whole process, unfortunately, but it's like I mean, it's a process, man. I'm not gonna lie to you and say like it's such a breeze, like, oh, it's just everything that I've just put in front of you. I mean, we are talking about like months of work, and it is something to where like that process is also part of the sales process, so when I'm actually doing it, like that's how I sold into the process in the first place. Like, this is the way that we're doing it. And if you're not game for this, like, then don't sign the contract. Right. It's so, and so that's just part of the game. Right. So it's one of the things where, so I can, it's one of the things where after the fact, if you're struggling with that kind of stuff, I can see why, because at this point, you're probably running into walls where you've got a bunch of people that are entrenched that are gone like, yeah, I'm just not going to do it. And screw this guy that we hired. I don't care how much you paid money for it. We're just never going to change. So it's kind of like the way this system's set up, unfortunately. So it's a sad way this kind of work. I mean, the only thing I can kind of throw at you is kind of like try and take a lot of the stuff that I threw at you on here, which I think they're going to give you all these things, right? But like, try your best to kind of sneak it in, as much as you can, along this nice, and see if that breaks down any walls over time, and obviously you can't do anything about, like, you can't give them bonuses and stuff like that. But like, there's little pieces of the puzzle that you can really do to try and get around these things and see where it makes a difference, as far as just encouragement and along the way, and see if that does the trick, right? But outside of that, otherwise it's just a matter of like, there's going to be some failure in your future that you're going to have to deal with. And at some point, when that becomes very evident that that's going to be in their future, you're going to have to let them know, like, this is coming and I'm going to let you know that it's coming unless you change course. Right. And so if you don't want it to happen, here's a bunch of stuff that I think we can do to fix that I want to implement. And that's the best way to do it. Right. But it's like, it's going to mean starting over with a bunch of new plans. but that's the best way I can suggest it, right? So it's going to mean a lot of work, right? But it's the best way I can think of at this point, right? But it's kind of like I don't know if you've probably encountered it at least once. I know most people have. It's kind of like it's trying to like taking over a campaign that never really established its goals in the beginning, and then you come in and somebody asks you, it's like, hey, is this campaign successful? And I go, I don't know what you're trying to do, like it's like that, it's like you're really trying to come in after the fact and fix something that like didn't get off on the right footing to start with. All right. Good luck. So, yeah.
I think that's all we have for time for questions. I'm sure Jeff will happy to stick around to ask anything that you have individually.
Yep.
Again, thank you. Let's give Jeff another round of applause. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank our room sponsor, Imaginuity, and we have the last session that's in the main room with Bill Hartzer ending the keynote. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Bill. Bill's great. Hey, man.
Danny.
Hey, Danny.
Quick question.
Yeah.